Mr. Speaker, I rise to present the budget, on my portion of the budget, today, and to show Team Unity's commitment to deliver on our various promises. I see why the member for number 2 said absent. She knew she just came to mark her name. Mr. Speaker, despite the numerous challenges that Team Unity encountered since we took office in 2015, and particularly in 2017, including, Mr. Speaker, 2 major hurricanes, Irma and Maria. With God's help, no challenge, Mr. Speaker, was insurmountable. And, Mr. Speaker, these kinds of challenges do not perturb or dishearten or discourage a government that the people of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis so graciously and confidently handed over the reins in 2015 to lead us into a new era of tangible prosperity, economic growth, social advancement that the ordinary man and woman on the streets of St. Kitts and Nevis can feel and benefit from. And so, Mr. Speaker, I do not take the confidence that and the trust that my constituents have reposed in me lightly. And it is my intention to ensure that my cherished constituents and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis are not disappointed, but I dare say would indeed be elated that the decision that they made in 2015, not only to elect me as the member for constituency number 4, but the entire Team Unity government, and that was the right decision. And so, Mr. Speaker, in delivering on this, my portion of the 2018 budget, I am honored as the Minister responsible for tourism, international trade, industry, commerce, and consumer affairs to present on my portion of the budget and to indicate the importance to all sectors of the society. Mr. Speaker, we are on the brink of, I would say, at the end of the year 2017, a year that my ministry accomplished a significant number of projects that has really helped push the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis further to our goal of sustainable development, employment, economic growth, and social advancement. And within the ambit of the Ministry of International Trade, we have ensured, first of all, that St. Kitts and Nevis can fully benefit from the Trade Facilitation Agreement, which comes into force, which came into force in February of this year and was ratified by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. But, Mr. Speaker, what does this Trade Facilitation Agreement mean in the context of the ordinary person in St. Kitts and Nevis? And what does it translate into for our people? What really are the socio-economic benefits that the signing of this agreement brings to the table. I should say that the very act provides for the expeditious movement, the release, the clearance of goods through our ports. And apart from this, Mr. Speaker, it also aids with the linking and the smoothing out of the unnecessary bureaucracy which sometimes we meet between the customs, excise departments, and other agencies, particularly as it relates to compliance issues. Mr. Speaker, the trade facilitation agreement ratification would improve in the transparency and predictability for conducting trade in the Federation, which is so important. And therefore, the confidence, Mr. Speaker, of both the public sector and the private sector in conducting business activities is enhanced. And Mr. Speaker, you might be wondering where we are going to get the funds from, the money from, the resources from, since we know resources are always a scarce commodity in small islands like ours. Needless to say, Mr. Speaker, that this comes at no cost to the government. Because obviously, Mr. Speaker, we are within the confines of the European Union and the funds coming out of the EDF, which funds not only programs, but capacity building at no cost to the government. Mr. Speaker, one area that is troubling, though, and which we need to address head-on, first of all, and in a pragmatic way, is the issue that has been a perennial problem for us in this country, and that is the ease, our ranking in the ease of doing business. We have a not so good ranking, Mr. Speaker, on that index. And so I have, for 2018, decided to use the opportunity, first of all, to call on the public and the private sector to dialogue with them, to form a committee for us to strategize, to find a solution to ensuring that we get a better ranking on this index. Because, Mr. Speaker, it has been really dogging us for a number of years. And I believe the time is right at this opportunity, at this time, to meet it head on, dialogue with the technocrats, dialogue with the private sector, and to see what we can do to ensure that we get a better ranking on the index. Mr. Speaker, germane to this, during the course of 2017, I embarked on a very important mission, which was to revisit the St. Kitts, Brazil, Guyana partial scope agreement. This has been dangling for the last in the region 10 years now, Mr. Speaker. And the manufacturers here have been crying out for us to finally conclude the partial scope agreement. And so for 2017, we have worked rather tirelessly with the officials in Guyana, with the officials in Brazil, to conclude this very protracted partial scope agreement. And Mr. Speaker, I should say that we are almost at the end of concluding this partial scope agreement. We had the opportunity to have an official from the Ministry of International Trade and the President of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Mr. Jose Rosa, travel to Guyana to meet face-to-face with their Guyanese counterparts and their Brazilian counterparts in an effort to explore the modalities for a new trading arrangement and to finally conclude this most important agreement. And part of that visit, Mr. Speaker, was to make certain that the agreement made provisions to benefit our small manufacturers here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And not only to the enclave sector, but to the entire manufacturing sector. Because as you would appreciate, Mr. Speaker, the Brazil market is a huge market. And once we sign off on this agreement and have it in force, it therefore means our goods produced by our local manufacturers can enter the Brazilian market without hindrance. And so it's very important. And of course, the Brazilians have come with a counter proposal because obviously they want goods into our market also. And so it's a give and take. And I should say also that not only are we looking in terms of the manufacturing sector, but there are all other sectors that we may be able to have an interest in the Brazilian and the Guyanese market. And so we look towards, let's say, agriculture, which has a very important also component in terms of the market in Guyana and Brazil. And so, Mr. Speaker, we continue to work, and we expect that when 2018 rolls in, we hope to conclude this agreement, this most important agreement, I would hope in the first quarter of 2018. Mr. Speaker, under the careful watch of the Ministry of Trade also, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis has finally ratified the CARIFORUM EU Economic Partnership Agreement, better known as the EPA. And I say finally because it was signed since back in 2008, almost 10 years ago, and has not been ratified until this year by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. And Mr. Speaker, this agreement is the only comprehensive agreement signed by the St. Kitts and Nevis government and our CARICOM brothers and sisters. And so therefore it is imperative that as Minister, we see to it that the real benefits to be derived from this agreement materialize. It hinges a lot on market access, and market access is very important for our manufacturers in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so this agreement gives us that platform which is or will be beneficial for our manufacturers. Mr. Speaker, we continue to dialogue with the European Union, amongst the members of CARICOM, Caribbean Community, CARIFORUM, the ACP, the African and Caribbean and Pacific Group. And in fact, we participated, Mr. Speaker, in the 20th meeting of the African Caribbean Pacific Group, Ministerial Trade Committee, and the 15th meeting of the Joint African Caribbean Pacific Group and the European Union Ministerial Trade Committee in Brussels in October of this year. And the task, Mr. Speaker, was to make certain that at the highest level that St. Kitts and Nevis's interests formulate the overall ACP group's position on important matters which are of benefit and interest to the Federation. Interest as it pertains to fisheries, interest as it pertains to agriculture, and obviously, Mr. Speaker, you would appreciate the carve-out, the special carve-outs for SID, small island developing states, like St. Kitts, who are very prone to threats of being decimated by natural disasters. And so I think for the very first time since we've been arguing about a special carve-out for the SIDS because of our special affinity, I would say, to natural disasters, that this has now been done and becomes a very relevant area for us. And, Mr. Speaker, we have to recognize also that all these funds are made possible under, right now, the 10th European Development Fund, EDF, under the Caribbean Regional Indicative Program, right now valued at some, I believe, 165 million euros, which provides support not only to St. Kitts and Nevis, but all of us in the region, and aided in the implementation of the EPA. And under the same program, Mr. Speaker, we have another in the region of 46.5 million euros contribution given to support in other technical areas under the EPA. And this is very important because a lot of our capacity building in St. Kitts and Nevis comes by way of this fund. Mr. Speaker, looking further out within the CARICOM framework, we have ensured that St. Kitts and Nevis continue to participate in trade meetings covering the various bilateral agreements that we have and that what we are party to. And so, for example, Mr. Speaker, we have the CARICOM and Dominican Republic Agreement. We have CARICOM and the Cuba Trade Agreement. These are really top on the agenda items for St. Kitts and Nevis and the wider CARICOM. And Mr. Speaker, these trade agreements have been signed on to for a number of years. But as of now, we are revisiting them, discussing them both locally and regionally to ensure that CARICOM member states, which include St. Kitts and Nevis, we are ready to conduct business under these various trade agreements. Mr. Speaker, I think one of the important projects that we have finally formalized in 2017 is the launch of the National Coalition of Service Providers. This again has been a very protracted project, and we've been finally able to get the service providers in St. Kitts and Nevis together to form this coalition so that in the wider scheme of things, they can benefit. And this organ, Mr. Speaker, provides the opportunity for its members, the private sector, to participate on a national level in the non-tourism services sector, So we're speaking like the engineers, the doctors, all of them forming groups within the service sector, architects, to make sure that we are up to speed and we don't get left behind, Mr. Speaker. And the aim really of launching this body, Mr. Speaker, was to promote the competitiveness of the services industry and to aid in their capacity to export their services and to aid public sector policy formulation. Because what is happening, our people sometimes feel they're getting left out because we might have a grouping in Barbados, a grouping in Trinidad or wherever they come from, and of course they can sell their services into St. Kitts. And if we don't make sure that our people have the corresponding ability to export their services overseas while still maintaining their local market, then there is going to be a challenge there. And so we have instituted this national coalition of service providers to make sure that the competitiveness of the services sector in St. Kitts and Nevis is intact. Mr. Speaker, for a brief moment, I want to turn our attention to the Department of Consumer Affairs. This agency or department, Mr. Speaker, is the only agency for consumer advocacy within the Federation. And it continues, Mr. Speaker, to remain true to its mandate of ensuring that the rights of consumers are not only protected, but also defended. And we continue, Mr. Speaker, to educate consumers, inform them, empower them on the relevant and important information to make better business decisions within the marketplace. And Mr. Speaker, in 2017, we saw a drastic increase in the frequency and the quality of inspection and checks and price data collection exercises conducted by the department. And this is slated to continue throughout 2018. Because ever so often, we hear people say, whether rightly or wrongly, prices high, prices increase. Today they go and buy a pound of saltfish for $10. Next week they say it's $11, $12. And so constantly, the Department of Consumer Affairs has to be collecting the data, analyzing the data, to ensure that there is no price gouging and that the price in the marketplace is fair. And so whereas, Mr. Speaker, that consumer affairs officers previously were dispatched on a bi-weekly basis to conduct these various exercises of data collection, etc. As of February 2017, officers are now dispatched Monday to Thursday of each week, hereby allowing the department, in conjunction with the assistance of the health department, to be more efficient in removing expired items off the shelves. And in addition to this, Mr. Speaker, the price data that we collect is essential in informing us as to whether or not only that there is price increases, but whether there are price gouging by the various entities. And so it is very important, because there are about 28 large and medium-sized supermarkets all across St. Kitts and Nevis. And so we ensure that the checks and the balances relate to all. And Mr. Speaker, apart from the above, 2017 also saw the launch of the Consumer Affairs Department, SKN Shopper. Now, SKN Shopper is very important. It's an app which was developed with the assistance of the Information Technology Department. And this app allows consumers to compare prices of identical grocery items sold in the various supermarkets. Very important, because it allows the consumer from the very app to determine whether or not they're going to buy the tin of milk from Rams as against Best Buy, because they have a live pricing for the particular and specific product all across the supermarket chains in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so it gives the consumer the ability to be able to differentiate and determine which supermarket they will buy the product from. But in addition to that, it also gives the Department of Consumer Affairs the ability to track the prices of goods on the supermarket shelves almost 24/7, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I want to take the opportunity then to do a little advertising for the Department of Consumer Affairs, and to say that really you can download this SKN Shopper very easily to the mobile devices that so many of us now have. And you can get that from either Google Play Store or the Apple's App Store. And so it is readily available on those two platforms, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is my task of really ensuring the residents and the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis that the benefits envisaged from the VAT removal initiative on all food items, the investigation officers of the Consumer Affairs Department remains vigilant during 2017, and we are going to ensure that that vigilance carries over and continues into 2018. And the investigating officers, Mr. Speaker, will continue to take advantage of the Asekuda portal, which is employed by the Customs and Excise Department, to independently calculate the correct selling price of controlled items based upon their landed costs and the government stipulated markups. This effort in its own right, Mr. Speaker, will serve as a deterrent to price gouging by merchants. Mr. Speaker, in remaining steadfast in my commitment to adopting harmonized consumer protection legislation, along with providing the residents and visitors of the Federation with a comprehensive framework for dispute redress, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis will continue the process of making final adjustments to the CARICOM Consumer Protection Bill. This in itself is a very critical step, as adjustments will be based on stakeholder feedback and suggestions. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, realizing that this bill will need supporting regulations to be as effective as envisaged, we will ensure that priority be afforded to the continuation of the process of drafting regulations with the accompanying bill, which has not been a thing of the past. And so, Mr. Speaker, having adopted both the CARICOM Consumer Protection Bill and creating supporting regulations for such, will ultimately give necessary and much needed enforcement powers to the Consumer Affairs Department, which hitherto it did not have. Mr. Speaker, in addition to finalizing the work on this updated legislation, it would also be mandatory that the modernized approach towards public awareness created in 2017 continues into 2018 via our program, Consumer Corner, which is an informative radio program. And with this departmental radio show, Mr. Speaker, information will be disseminated to the wider public as their rights as consumers and what should be expected when conducting various transactions. Mr. Speaker, I would like to turn my attention to the Bureau of Standards. And in tandem to the above, which I just spoke about, and the activities of the St. Kitts Nevis Bureau of Standards, we ensure that we have an overall national development objective. And so the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards, Mr. Speaker, forms a critical component in the advancement of the economy of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards has the major responsibility of protecting the environment, the health, and the safety of consumers. And its role continues to expand to meet global changes and global challenges. And so with the establishment of the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME, the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards activities now include, Mr. Speaker, increased participation at regional levels, where it participates in the harmonization of standards, measures, and conformity assessment regimes for regional integration. Mr. Speaker, as the national standards body for St. Kitts and Nevis, it is incumbent upon the St. Kitts Nevis Bureau of Standards to ensure that it is accredited in the various areas of its service, and so that the SKNBS continues to work towards certification to the ISO 9001 standard, which will ensure that the St. Kitts Nevis Bureau of Standards achieves its mandate, satisfies the requirements of its customers, and moves closer to advancing its goal of accreditation to the ISO IEC 17025 standard, Mr. Speaker. And so significant strides have been made towards accreditation of the 6 microbiological test methods: Salmonella, E. coli, coliforms, yeast, mold. And you would recognize, Mr. Speaker, that a lot of the air testing and the issues of mold are really handled by the St. Kitts Nevis Bureau of Standards in terms of determining whether areas of work, etc., are fit for purpose, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, on the 24th of May, 2017, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis deposited its instrument of ratification, thereby becoming the 53rd future party to the Minamata Convention on Mercury. And as a result, Mr. Speaker, the Federation was among 81 countries in the world to be recognized as a party to the convention at the first conference of the parties, COP1, hosted in Geneva, Switzerland in September of 2017. And this convention on mercury is a global treaty, Mr. Speaker, to protect human health and the environment from the adverse effects of mercury. Mr. Speaker, I am again proud to state that the meteorology section of the St. Kitts Nevis Bureau of Standards continues to improve its services, and each year it verifies all the major supermarket scales, airport scales, fuel pump station, and industries throughout the Federation, which means that a gallon of gas in Sandy Point is the same as a gallon of gas in Charlestown, Nevis. And that is also a remit of the St. Kitts Nevis Bureau of Standards. Future work, Mr. Speaker, includes the establishment of a mass laboratory, which once completed will add mass calibration services to the long list of services provided by the Bureau of Standards. The Bureau's technical competence will be further strengthened, Mr. Speaker, in the short term, vis-à-vis the basic tasks of energy measurement and electricity meter verification, including smart meters with the acquisition of a watt-hour meter test and calibration system in early 2018. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with the Federation's national energy policy vision and the advancement of green development, the Bureau will be seeking to finalize the installation of effective, energy-efficient solar panels in 2018 that will offer several advantages and benefits to the Bureau of Standards, chief among which will be the reduction of the Bureau's energy bill by approximately 70%. That's a lot, 70%, as compared to the consumption of existing national grid electrical system. Mr. Speaker, the Bureau of Standards continues to deliver first-rate chemistry, meteorology, microbiology services, and indoor air quality monitoring services. And owing to the increased demand for these services, the Bureau of Standards hopes to increase its staff complement, enhance the technical competence of existing staff, and improve the equipment and technology currently used. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn my attention to the last component of the Ministry of Industry, Trade, etc., which is the National Entrepreneurial Development Division, better known as NED. Mr. Speaker, as the Federation continues to strategically develop the micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs sector, continued emphasis has to be placed and is being placed on the delivery of timely, efficient, and professional technical assistance to entrepreneurs and their enterprises. The delivery of this critical business support comes through the government's business agency, the National Entrepreneurial Development Division, NED. And this division, Mr. Speaker, focuses on the provision of technical support to the MSMEs through various interventions, inclusive of business plan development assistance, Mr. Speaker. And over the past 11 months, we have given assistance in this area to some 37 businesses. There's also business training workshops and seminars. And we have conducted 9, Mr. Speaker, over the last 11 months. There's also the area of assistance with applications for duty-free concessions. And we have assisted some 109 applicants over the last 11 months. There is also general business counseling and management guidance. And over the last 11 months, Mr. Speaker, we have assisted some 153 persons in this regard. And Mr. Speaker, over the last 8 years, the division would have, in one way or another, positively impacted the activities, the dreams, the aspirations of over 590 entrepreneurs. Employment generation from these entrepreneurial ventures totaled some 854 jobs. That is very significant, Mr. Speaker. And within the last 11 months alone, some 153 entrepreneurs would have benefited directly from the service delivery of NED. Mr. Speaker, the existence of this division continues to positively influence the MSME's landscape of the Federation via the inculcating of an entrepreneurial culture among our people. And as such, in addition to its usual training interventions, lectures, presentations at schools, business associations, and other organizations, the division has embarked on a method of reaching out to the communities and taking the entrepreneurship message to the people via community business meetings. And during the period January to November of 2017, 3 such sessions were held. We held one, Mr. Speaker, in St. Paul's. We held one in Newtown. We held one in Old Road. And in addition to this, Mr. Speaker, the NED has engaged in several collaborative efforts, including partnering with the Junior Achievement in preparing and participating in schools, high schools, and students with the planning, documenting, and showcasing of their projects at our National Youth Fair, which we have every year. Mr. Speaker, I want to end there for the Ministry of Industry and Trade and move quickly into the other portfolio, which I have the opportunity to head at this time, Mr. Speaker, and it is regarding tourism. Mr. Speaker, the importance of the tourism sector to the overall economy of St. Kitts and Nevis simply cannot be emphasized enough. Cannot be. And according to the statistics provided, Mr. Speaker, by the World Travel and Tourism Council, the WTTC, in their 2017 Economic Impact Report for St. Kitts and Nevis, the total contribution of travel and tourism to our GDP in 2016 was some EC $651.7 million, or 25.1% of GDP in 2016. They have said it is forecast to rise by some 4.4% by the end of 2017, and to rise by some 5.6% to EC $1.173 billion, or 33.3% of our GDP by the year 2027. Growing effectively to represent by 2027 to be 1/3 of the Federation's overall economic position. 1/3. Very significant by the year 2027. And so, Mr. Speaker, as a clear indication that the strategies for tourism infrastructure, product development, as well as our marketing tactics employed by the Ministry of Tourism and the St. Kitts Tourism Authority have been successful in yielding positive results, impactful results over the past year, and I would draw your attention to them as I go through the summary. Mr. Speaker, in terms of our social media, which is becoming increasingly used as a source of inspiration, information by travelers worldwide, St. Kitts currently ranks as the 5th most influential tourist board in the entire Caribbean region. On Twitter, St. Kitts has doubled the number of followers year over year, doubled year over year, having now grown to 35,000 individual accounts on Twitter who interact with us, receive news from our brand, and it's complemented by another 2,100 in Nevis. Our Instagram, Mr. Speaker, our followers have tripled the amount over the last year, tripled. Our Facebook account has tripled also, and we are now at some 100,000 persons on our Facebook account, very significant. Mr. Speaker, so far in 2017, we have received many accolades from many prestigious media houses who have recognized the Federation. Wall Street Journal ranked St. Kitts number 9 on a list of 10 places in the world where you should vacation in 2017. Wall Street Journal. Coastal Living has ranked St. Kitts as number 16 of the world's 21 top luxury beach destinations in 2017. Caribbean Journal has ranked St. Kitts number 11 of 25 destinations to visit in 2017. Further, St. Kitts has been named number 8 out of the 10 sexiest, I don't know what I mean by that. Or is it people sexy? I don't know. On the planet by Reader's Digest Canada. And we can go on and on and on, Mr. Speaker. U.S. News and World Report ranks us number 1 on the list of best Caribbean honeymoons. Number 2 on the list of best beach honeymoon destinations in the world. Number 7 on the list of best islands in the world. Best islands in the world, number 7. Number 11 on the list of best family vacations in the Caribbean. Number 12 on the list of best Caribbean beaches. And number 16 on the list of best places to visit in the Caribbean. We could go on and on and on and on. The fact is that St. Kitts is getting a lot of recognition. Mr. Speaker, Brimstone Hill, our famous UNESCO World Heritage Site and National Park, has been ranked as one of the most beautiful places in the Caribbean by Condé Nast Traveler, one of the most discerning and well-known travel magazines in the world. St. Kitts Nevis Music Festival and the Nevis Blues Festival have been ranked among the best music festivals in the Caribbean. Not by me, but by USA Today. And our St. Kitts Music Festival was also recently included in an article appearing on Billboard magazine website for excellence in producing and for managing a successful event that positively impacts tourism. Mr. Speaker, the St. Kitts Music Festival continues to serve as a marquee event for the destination, attracting both significant publicity as well as increased visitors during the start of tourism's low season. This year alone, Mr. Speaker, we received significant media coverage from North America, from the United Kingdom, from Canada, from Caribbean outlets, where online articles and social media posts about the festival and the islands as a leisure travel destination generated some 4 million viewerships on our page across all our digital platforms, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to develop and to leverage events, tourism, as a means of growing our rivals in the so-called low season. Our restaurant week, having just completed its third successful year, is becoming increasingly established in the marketplace as an exciting culinary event showcasing the variety of cuisines available on the island, with a particular emphasis on our local chef talents and delectable West Indian food. This year, Mr. Speaker, we attracted a record number of participating dining establishments, and the visit of a journalist from the Sheen magazine from the event promises a 4- to 6-page dedicated article on St. Kitts and its gastronomic offerings, in addition to an online article to be published this winter. Further promoting the destination, Mr. Speaker, we took part in the Atlanta Food and Wine Festival for the first time this past June, bringing a taste of our distinctive foods and beverages to an audience of thousands of potential visitors in a key source market, supporting our non-stop service from Delta Airlines. They sampled our tasty treats, including the locally crafted Brindley Gold Rum. Mr. Speaker, we continue to support and have partnered with the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots, which was established in 2015. And through this present sponsorship, we receive significant brand awareness with the local, regional, and international markets. And I'm certain, Mr. Speaker, you would have recognized that St. Kitts was emblazoned across the front of the jersey, of the Patriots jersey, and Nevis emblazoned again on the back. And so we had full coverage to millions of viewers worldwide, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our St. Kitts and Nevis Pro-Am Golf Tournament attracted a new record number of event participants this year, with more than 125 PGA club professionals, amateur golfers, and guests enjoying our destination. We also entered into a partnership with Bermuda Sands as the official lifestyle apparel partner for the event, marking another historic first in 2017. I must draw your attention, Mr. Speaker, that we have something new set for 2018. Because come 2018, we have now partnered with the New Jersey State Golf Association, the NJSGA, to sponsor their ultimate team event and provide the winning two-person team along with their club professional and another amateur with a team spot in our Pro-Am for 2018. And you would appreciate, Mr. Speaker, that our target marketing efforts in New Jersey are already starting to generate incremental inquiries, both for leisure and event bookings, which is what we are trying to establish. And due to the success, Mr. Speaker, of the inaugural St. Kitts and Nevis Couples Golf Classic, our second annual event will be hosted by the Four Seasons Resort in Nevis in November and will include a day of play at the Royal St. Kitts Golf Club. Now entering its third year in 2018, we have our partnership with the Golf Ontario in Canada, resulted in the organization's junior golf team visiting St. Kitts for the first international training trip in 2017. And Golf Ontario will also be bringing another contingent of golf travelers to St. Kitts this coming January for the third annual St. Kitts Placation and Second Ball Invitational Tournament. I must say, Mr. Speaker, that these partnerships in golf in Canada are paying dividends. because already we are seeing the numbers increasing out of Canada. That is significant. Canada has a tremendous amount of golfers who travel internationally to play. And we expect that we should have an increase out of Canada for this year, specifically in excess of 10%. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the UK market, we have continued to conduct our branded taxi campaign in London, with nearly a dozen iconic black taxis sporting the logo of St. Kitts all over London, engaging with some 1.4 million Londoners who visit the capital city every month. This again, Mr. Speaker, is to drive awareness for St. Kitts, and as a consequence, support our twice-weekly flight, British Airways out of Gatwick, London, in a better way, Mr. Speaker. We also, Mr. Speaker, do an annual roadshow in London, again, and we do that with Nevis. So St. Kitts and Nevis partner into London every year. We do a week roadshow to, again, bring some brand awareness to St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, for this year, we have teamed up with the Caribbean Tourism Organization to host the Climate Smart Sustainable Tourism Forum. It should have been held in September, but because of the hurricanes Irma and Maria, we had to postpone the Climate Smart Sustainable Tourism Forum, which is now being held December 12 to 14, bringing together local, regional, international representatives, both from the private sector and the public sector, as well as development agencies that offer programming in sustainable tourism, for 3 days of interactive engagements. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn briefly to the yachting sector. This is a growing area and a niche market which we're trying to hone in on, Mr. Speaker. And it is now in its third year, and we have seen growth levels in the region of 22.5% year on year, Mr. Speaker. We, just last month, Mr. Speaker, put on the table our 5-year yachting strategic plan, 2017-2022, where we brought together all the stakeholders from across St. Kitts and Nevis to showcase to them, and they had a significant input in the document, Mr. Speaker, as to where we would wish to see our yachting sector go. And so we have outlined that program to them, and they having had a significant input in that, we are happy for that. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn my attention to the, but before I go to the cruise sector, Mr. Speaker, I want to suggest, Mr. Speaker, that we are in for a tremendous delivery in our tourism product. Just last month, we had opened the 126-room luxury Park Hyatt St. Kitts. The only, and I must say, because we have to take the success that it is, the only Park Hyatt in the Caribbean.
Any thanks to former administrations or just Just ask.
You know, history is amazing, you know.
It is.
Very amazing. Because some people seem to forget, you know, because some people want to take Port Zante as theirs.
Oh, no.
You know, don't want to give no credit to nobody.
Yeah, man.
You know, but all of a sudden they want the credit for Park Hyatt. You see, that is why governments are governments in succession. And people must understand that. Things don't just fall out of the sky.
Absolutely.
So I will give the former governments its due.
That's where they go. That's where they go.
That is why the road to nowhere is now the road to everywhere. Because 30 years ago when that road was built by the People's Action Movement government, criticized.
2020.
Now 30 years later, whenever it is, 30 years later, is the road to everywhere. So we have to be very careful in our pronouncements.
As a matter of fact, I remember they passed a law which make over there like a country by itself.
Yes, forget that and all. You know. So we give due where it's due.
Good, good.
But I'll come to that when I'm going to come to something else, you see. Because the benefits we are now getting from the cruise industry is as a consequence of the foresight of the Right Honorable Dr. Sir Kennedy Simmons and the team then. And what we are going to give you now, 20 years later, with our new cruise facility,
yes,
is going to be a model for the next 30 years.
Yes.
That's vision.
We have that.
And I want to turn, Mr. Speaker, to the cruise sector. I want to take credit again.
Man, come on. You're not scheduling this 3 to 5 years. Your ships don't come.
No, man, 10 years.
No, man, not so much. Your ships
Mr. Speaker, in terms of our cruise sector, we are up, well, 50% this year. 50%.
Remember to explain why.
I will explain why. Mr. Speaker, last year we had, let me make sure I got it right. We had, I don't want to mislead anybody, we had 373 calls last year. 373 calls last year, bringing to our shores 988,000 passengers.
That's 2017.
16, 17 cruise. And I must explain, Mr. Speaker, that it goes from October to September. So 988,000. The year before that, we had 700 and something thousand. The year prior to that, 600 and something thousand. We have never arrived at 1 million. In fact, we were fighting last year to arrive at 1 million. But we fell short by about 12,000. This year, Mr. Speaker, we are going to get 569 calls, bringing to our shores a total of 1,500,993 passengers. And I hear the member opposite speaker tell them why they get it. Because he may very well think that the numbers are all attributable to the lack of facilities in the region. But you see, that shows his lack of knowledge in the area. So I forgive him for that. Because, Mr. Speaker, the cruise industry doesn't exist on one island.
That is true.
And so, because Puerto Rico is not up and running, the BVI is not up and running, St. Martin is not up and running, St. Kitts is affected in a negative way.
Correct.
Okay, in a negative way, not a positive way, in a negative way. Because if the cruise has an eastward bound itinerary, and they can home port in Puerto Rico, they can go to the BVI, They can't go to St. Martin where they ain't coming St. Kitts alone. And that has been for us the challenge. And that is why I led a team from here after the hurricane to go to the cruise executives, an alternative rather than for them to take the ship and go Western Caribbean. So I want the country to understand that, and for you to understand that. It is by no miracle or no misfortune or no accident that we have 1.5 million people. It is by the hard work of the Ministry of Tourism and the Tourism Authority why we have these numbers here. So I want to make that clear, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, we had the fortune, the good fortune, 2016, 2017, to have the world's largest cruise ship here, Harmony of the Seas. One of the few places, as a matter of fact, the only place that the Harmony of the Seas came to, the only port it came to that doesn't have 1 million passengers is St. Kitts. Because we have a good port. We have a fantastic port. And that is why I say all year around, we have to preserve what we have. And so we have to ensure that we deliver the best possible service to the people that we are serving. And so we continue that. I listened here yesterday to the debate. I wrote it down somewhere when the leader of the opposition was presenting. And he says, I boasting basically that we had 7 cruise ships in port one day, but them is yacht. Them is yacht. But Mr. Speaker, he got it wrong. I ain't count the yacht them. He had 7 cruise ships. I did not count the yachts. But maybe he mistook the elegant Viking Star to be a yacht, because the Viking Star only holds 902 passengers. It's a small one, 902. But what I can tell you, that those persons on the Viking Star pay $6,000 a night. Yeah? 6,000 US a night. It's a serious ship. So although it has 902, it's a serious economic. I can't afford that. Can't afford that. 902. And so, I know what he's saying, but Mr. Speaker, we're going to have a problem come Christmas. And I'm hoping that all the stakeholders get together and we work out the logistics. Because you see, this is such a bumper season. Christmas Day, 7 ships. Christmas Day, 7 ships. Never heard again in this country before. But I guess, what you say? 4 years, that's what you say? Planning? 3 to 5? Take the 10, man. Boxing Day, 7 ships. Mr. Speaker, look at this week alone. This week alone. This week alone. Let me start with today. Today alone, 3 ships. There's no day in this month you don't have 3 ships. No day. This week, 25 calls. 50,584 passengers pumped into the economy, according to the Bray report. $5.6 million into the economy just this week. And the Bray report, Mr. Speaker, is not my thing. The Bray report, I want to make sure I have it. The Bray report, the Business Research and Economic Advisors report for 2015 indicates that each passenger, not me, is by empirical data, innocent Kitts spends $108.11. Empirical data. And so they can extrapolate that information and determine the economic impact to St. Kitts on a day, on a week, on a month, in any given cruise year. And that is why in any given cruise year, for example, last year, the money pumped into this economy last year from cruise alone was some 200 and something million EC dollars. Lot of money. Lot of money. And so, Mr. Speaker, we have further enjoyed the benefits of a record-breaking summer cruise season this year. Record-breaking again. I don't want to stand up here and talk about it and blow my own trumpet, but I got to give you the data. It's record-breaking after record-breaking after record-breaking. I came in 2015, I broke the record. I come 2016, I break it again. I come 2017, I break the one I broke before. Record-breaking. What are they? In June to September of this year. Historic. I go along there, the taxi men, them say, hold off, man, we want a little west. Ease down the pressure on us. So the taxi men and the tour operators telling me they have too much work. Eh? I talked to Soca, the monkey man, primate vendor. So I see him about 2 days ago. I said, Soca, we're going. I said, boss, boy, money rolling, money rolling, money rolling. I don't want to give tales out of school, but Soca, the primate vendor, making more than parliamentarians. You think it's funny? Soca, the primate vendor, making more than parliamentarians. Because if you go to the estimates to find out how much parliamentarians make as our basic salary, people think we make a lot of money, you know. 8,500.
And in my case, 8.
8,500, in your case, 8. Eh? Soca making more than that a month as a primate vendor. Are you going to run monkey? Are you going to take monkey, come take picture of monkey? Because I know you ain't gonna stress. So okay, ain't gonna stress in the world. But we come take stress every day, they say we get more load of money. Load of money what? We are here because we're working for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Because that is what we want to do. We want to better the lives of every single man, woman, and child in this country here, irrespective of pay. And you know that. You know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't compare to that.
So, Mr. Speaker, we're working hard in this industry. And while I'm at it, I want to say the growth is not by magic. The growth ain't because of me. The growth, first of all, is we have to thank the Lord, first of all, for giving us the opportunity and the wherewithal. And I have to thank the team, because a ministry is as good as a team, not no one man. A ministry is good as a team. And so I have to thank my hard-working staff at the Ministry of Tourism and the St. Kitts Tourism Authority. They're making me look good. And they look, you know, your staff make the ministers look good. And so we have to thank all the hard-working public servants. I mean, those who come out religiously day after day, don't take off a day, don't much time, you know. And that is why we found it important to make sure that those hard-working civil servants go home with a double salary again this December. Unprecedented in the history of this country. I hope the PM will listen so you get my next one next year too. But that is why. I remembered because Dr. Simmons used to say, in times of plenty, you give something. When you don't have, you say, boy, we don't have. And so this government has given you another record surplus. How much it is? 100 and what? 30?
No.
How much?
80 something.
100 and what?
80 something.
That's a lot.
Something.
Yeah?
After 39.
Surplus after surplus after surplus. this government is giving you.
That one and explain.
So,
properly.
Mr. Speaker, so much for that. I want to turn our attention to a matter that requires some strategy and help, and which is airlift. Because, people are always complaining. Cruise industry is fine. We now have to focus our attention on stayovers. That's a correct analysis. Cruise is growing.
And was always projected to grow. We knew this was going to happen.
Not at the extent that is growing. Nobody could tell me you can grow the cruise 50% in 1 year. That ain't no mystery.
You're smart enough not to think with it.
That ain't no miracle. That's hard work to get it there. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to turn my attention to airlift. Because that is going to be my focus from now for the next 3 years. The focus has to be, how do we grow? How do we grow stayovers? Because you would appreciate stayovers bring more economic benefit than cruise. The difference is, however, that cruise give you almost an instant gratification, because you see hundreds and thousands of persons down there. It's affecting cruise on a daily basis. Today we have 3 ships in. Yeah? 6,600 and something people in today. Today is Thursday. Yes, 6,700 and something. We have the Norwegian Dawn, we have the TUI Discovery, and we have Azamara. 6,000 people down there.
That's Friday.
Yeah? Today is Friday. So, you have the taxi drivers, enough US dollars passing through the hands today. The tour operators, the hair braiders, the alarub, the primate vendors. All of those impacted positively today. And that is fine. We now have to turn our attention to stayovers. And that is why over the course of the next couple of years, I am going to be exerting my energy to ensure that we get in a different space when it comes to stayovers. Because stayovers has been flat, Mr. Speaker. I would admit that it has been flat. It has been flat under that government. Is flat under this government. 3% is not an increase that I want to see. I want to see an increase of some 10%. And that is what I'm working towards. And so, what is the development in this area to begin with just for this year? Well, this year, Mr. Speaker, United Airlines has increased its flights by more than 50% this year. I guess they want to attribute that to somebody too. United Airlines increased 50% out of their Newark hub to St. Kitts. Delta, an additional weekly non-stop flight out of JFK beginning December 23rd, something new. So Delta will now have a flight out of JFK for the first time beginning December 23rd. So all of those listening in New York, get your bags packed, get ready, jump on Delta, on JFK, 23rd December, boom, direct flight into St. Kitts. They added a flight out of their Atlanta hub also. And so we are steadily and gradually increasing the airlift. And so that is where our focus will be. We can't rest on our laurels, though, Mr. Speaker. We cannot rest on our laurels. We have to make hay, as they say, while the sun is shining. We have achieved a lot. We have achieved much. We keep improving the destination. But remember, we are in a competitive industry. And so that is why we say if we rest on our laurels, we may become something like the Falmouth in Jamaica, which at one time had 1 million cruise passengers coming through. They're down to 500,000. Why? Because of harassment, 1. Because 2, they weren't delivering the product they said they were going to deliver, so their numbers drop. We don't want to get in that position, and that is why year after year, we train our people who are on the front line in this industry. We trained 600 and something last year. This year we trained 447 on the front line. those in restaurants, those in bars, those at the airport, the Arab people, the primate. We train. You can't do too much training. And so we train and we train and we train and we train and we train to make sure our people understand that this business is important to this country. Because without tourism, we are in deep trouble. We don't have no sugar now. Sugar done gone since 2005. So we have to preserve this industry that we're in. And so that is why we develop it. Black Rocks. We've done something marvelous down in Black Rocks. I'm doing the opening on the 21st. I think I'm going to do that. Phase 1, Black Rocks finished. Nice roads, only in your area. Nice roads. 5 cottage houses. A barbecue barn. Lookout. We fix up people's friends and all down there to make it nice. You know, we've done a lot down there, spent a lot. We're in phase 2 now. Phase 2 has just started where we're going to do the other 5. Because we want down there. And these businesses are for people who are in the area, who are in the Bellevue area and wherever they are in that confine. Because we want tourism to not only be in Bastille, but to be down Black Rocks, to be down Sandy Point, to be in Old Road, to Charlestown, to St. Paul's, wherever. People must feel a part of the tourism product. You know? Look at what we have done with the Strip, and we're still working on it. It's a work in progress, so we have a lot more to do. Yeah? We have fixed up the Amino Craft Market, give it a facelift. Because we want to make sure our product is in a pristine condition. Upgrade to the Pelican Mall. To make sure the vendors down there get a part of the action. Yeah? We've put new signage all over Bastille. New signage. French, German, Spanish. We make sure that at the information booth, the persons down there are bilingual. Because we're delivering top-notch service to those who come. The last thing we want to do is get Germans now. So we'll have the whole gamut of it. So whether they come German, French, Spanish, what? We can communicate with them. And so this is what we're moving to. We're making sure our historical sites and landmarks are pristine. And I know my colleague, the Minister of Health, is helping me in the regard of making sure the Bastille and its confines are clean. That's what we want. Not just for those who are coming, but for ourselves also. And so we continue to do that. We went and we fixed up the Berkeley Memorial. That's done. We have the 2 fountains to deal with. Pretoria Garden and Independence Square. We want to nice up those areas because there's no town in the Caribbean as beautiful as Bastille. None. Go through all of them, none like Bastille. And so we have to ensure that this is kept up, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know you didn't tell me about my time, but I believe his time is running out. I want to just end on one last note, Mr. Speaker, is that we have introduced in syndicates a very important component of our tourism product. And we are taking guidance and support from our counterparts in Nevis, because they have a program in Nevis that is working well, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So we're going to learn from best practices, and we're learning from the best practices by our sisters and brothers in Nevis. And that is, we are starting our tourism programs in the school. And so we're beginning from a very early age to teach the children in the schools the importance of tourism and its service, not servitude. And so we have begun with a piloting in school. We're in the Dr. William Connor School. We're in the Sandy Point Primary School. We are in the Bastia High School. And we are in AVEC. And we want to now increase the program throughout all schools in St. Kitts. And so by the end of next year, we would hope to see that we have the requisite individuals who are trained enough to deliver what we want to deliver to the schools, and hence to better enhance our tourism product in St. Kitts. I just want to end, Mr. Speaker, by reinforcing the importance of the continued development of our tourism product. And that is why we now partnering with the CTO of having this climate smart, sustainable conference next week. A lot of the times we think that when North Americans come out to St. Kitts or the people from the UK, we need to give them something what they are accustomed to. That's not what they want. They want to come to St. Kitts and they want a KFC. They want to come and sample the goat water, the bullfoot, the cook-up, because the visitor today has changed. Before it was sun, sand, and sea. That's gone. That's a thing of the past. You know, I have a discerning visitor who want to immerse themselves in the culture of the country because they want to go back and be able to tell their friends, I had a goat water for their friend. They said, what that? He said, no, I had a goat water. And explain to them. That's the nature of tourism today. And so I want to send a message to the persons who are listening that we have ample opportunity to make money from our culture and what we are accustomed to. And to say to them that all we need to do is present whatever we want to sell in a manner that's presentable. And there are tremendous opportunities out there for those who want to get into this industry, whether by way of taxi operators, whether by way of vendors. But we have to do it in a manner that's pretty much regulated in a way that is of benefit to the Federation. And so we have to need to maximize the tourism opportunities that we have, and that the prosperity and the quality of life for present and future generations would be intact. And I want to say on this...
I must advise that your time has expired. I'm aware you appear to be...
I'm wrapping up. I just want to say, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for that. But I just want to say a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, because I think this is the last time we're going to be in this. No. I'm good. To wish them all the best for the rest of 2017 and into 2018. I think 2018 bodes well for the future growth of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I think that we just have to harness what we have and work with this government for a brighter tomorrow, because I think the future holds well for St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.